One battle, one decision. Most people have never thought about it, but the outcome shaped everything that came after. The Strait of Hormuz is just a thin strip of water. At its narrowest point, it is only 21 miles wide. To a giant cargo ship, that feels like trying to drive a truck through a narrow hallway. Most of us never think about this place, but every single day, 1/5 of the world's oil passes through that hallway. If that water closes, the world stops. It is not a question of if it could happen. It is a question of how. For decades, we have imagined a massive war here. We pictured giant warships and fighter jets. But the real threat looks very different. The real threat is small. It is made of fiberglass. It is fast. And there are thousands of them. Imagine you are standing on the deck of a billion-dollar destroyer. You are part of the most powerful navy in human history. Your ship is a fortress of steel and electronics. Then you look at the radar. You do not see one big enemy ship, you see 50 tiny dots. Then 100, then 500. They are coming from every direction. They are not trying to fight you in a fair way. They are trying to drown you in numbers. This is the reality of the Iranian fast boat strategy. It is called a swarm. Think of it like a hive of bees attacking a single bear. The bear is stronger, the bear is bigger. But the bear cannot bite 1,000 bees at once. This is the hypothetical scenario we are exploring today. What happens when those boats stop just watching and start acting? What happens when they decide to close the gate? To understand the chaos that follows, we have to look at the world before the first shot is fired. Right now, the Strait of Hormuz is a delicate dance. Ships from every nation pass each other in silence. Giant tankers carrying millions of barrels of oil move slowly through the deep water channels. Behind them, warships from the United States, Britain, and France keep watch. And just a few miles away, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard sits in small coves and hidden harbors. They are watching. They are recording every movement. They have spent 40 years preparing for one specific day, the day they receive the order to block every exit. This is not just about sinking ships. It is about making the water too dangerous to touch. If you block a road with a wall, people stop driving. If you block a sea with explosives and speedboats, the world economy begins to starve. Iran knows they cannot win a long war against the entire world. But they do not have to win. They just have to make the cost of staying too high for everyone else. They have built a navy designed for this exact purpose. While other countries spent billions on a few giant ships, Iran spent those billions on thousands of tiny ones. Some are just fast motorboats with machine guns. Others carry powerful missiles that can sink a tanker. Some are even designed to be remote-controlled bombs. They are cheap, they are easy to replace, and in the narrow waters of the strait, they are deadly. In this world, the big ship is actually at a disadvantage. The water is shallow, the space is tight, there is nowhere to hide. A captain on a destroyer has to make a choice every second. Is that boat a fisherman? Is it a scout? Or is it carrying a ton of explosives? If he waits too long to find out, his ship is gone. If he fires too soon, he starts a global war. The tension is always there, bubbling just under the surface. Everyone knows the rules of the game, but one morning, those rules change. The sun rises over the jagged mountains of the Iranian coast. Usually, you would see a few patrol boats. But today is different. Every single harbor is empty. The boats are already out. They are moving into the shipping lanes. They are not firing. Not yet. They are just sitting there. Thousands of them, bobbing in the water like a carpet of plastic and steel. They have created a physical wall across the exit of the Persian Gulf. The first tanker captain sees them and slows down. He calls for help over the radio. But the radio is filled with static. The jamming has started. This is the moment the world changes. This is the beginning of the swarm rain. And the first consequence is not a missile hit. It is a phone call in a high-rise office thousands of miles away. A phone call that changes the price of everything you own. The morning of the blockade is not quiet. It is filled with the sound of thousands of small engines. For the crew of a United States destroyer patrolling the strait, the change happens in a single minute. One moment, they are watching the horizon for a single threat. The next moment, the horizon is gone. It is replaced by a moving wall of white water. This is the turning point. In every other conflict, there is a clear line you do not cross. If an enemy ship fires a missile, you fire back. If a plane flies too close, you give a warning. But a swarm does not work like that. A swarm uses your own rules against you. Imagine you are the captain of that destroyer. You are responsible for 300 lives. Your ship costs $2 billion. Across the water, you see 20 small boats heading directly for you. They are moving fast, weaving through the waves. They are not showing any weapons, but they are getting closer. 1 mile, half a mile, 200 yards. Your sensors are screaming. The bridge is loud with voices. You have to make a choice that will define the next 50 years of history. If you fire on those boats, you have started a war with Iran. If you do not fire, and just one of those boats is carrying a ton of explosives, your ship is gone. This is the first shot problem. In this scenario, the turning point happens when the Iranian commanders decide to take away the choice. They do not wait for the Americans to fire. They do not wait for a reason. They give the order to every fast boat in the Persian Gulf to launch at once. This is not a slow escalation. This is a physical closing of the door. From the secret harbors on the island of Keshem, hundreds of boats slide into the water. From the hidden coves near the port of Bandar Abbas, hundreds more join them. They are not just boats. They are a network. Each group of 10 boats is connected to a larger command center. They move like a single animal. They are not trying to sink the entire American fleet in one go. They are trying to seize the deep water channels. In the Strait of Hormuz, there are only 2 paths deep enough for the big oil tankers. One path goes in, one path goes out. Each path is only 2 miles wide. If you drop a few hundred mines and park 1,000 boats in those 2-mile lanes, the exit is closed. The turning point occurs when a massive tanker, the size of 3 football fields, encounters the first line of boats. The tanker cannot stop quickly. It takes miles for a ship that big to come to a halt. But the boats are everywhere. They are buzzing around the massive hull like flies. The tanker captain realizes he has 2 choices. He can try to plow through them and risk a massive explosion, or he can drop his anchor. When that first anchor hits the seafloor, the blockade becomes real. It is no longer a threat. It is a fact. Behind that first tanker, dozens of others are lined up. They are full of millions of gallons of crude oil heading for China, Japan, and Europe. They are now sitting ducks. But the real turning point is not just on the water, it is in the air. As the boats take their positions, Iranian land-based missile batteries on the coast turn on their radars. They are not firing yet. They are just painting the targets. Every American ship in the area suddenly hears a loud, steady tone. It is the sound of a missile lock. It is a message. The message says, if you move to clear the boats, we will fire everything we have. This creates a standoff that the world has never seen before. The most powerful navy on Earth is technically superior in every way, but in this narrow space, they are paralyzed. If they use their big guns to clear the small boats, they get hit by a barrage of missiles from the mountains. If they stay still, the world's energy supply remains locked in a cage. In the Situation rooms in Washington and Tehran, the clocks are ticking. The Iranian side has gambled everything on one idea. They believe that the world wants oil more than it wants a war. They believe that if they hold the exit, the world will eventually stop fighting and start negotiating. But they have ignored one thing. The global economy does not wait for negotiations. The moment that first tanker dropped its anchor, the price of oil did not just go up. It vanished. There was no longer a price because there was no longer a supply. This is the moment the Hormuz premium turns from a financial term into a global catastrophe. And back on the bridge of that destroyer, the captain is still looking at the radar. The 500 dots are now 1,000. The swarm has arrived. The gate is shut, and the first week of the new world is about to begin. The physical gate is now closed, but the real wall is invisible. It is made of paper and digital contracts. As the thousands of fast boats take their positions, the world of global finance begins to scream. Most of us think of war as missiles and explosions. But in the modern world, the first casualties are often found in office buildings. in London and New York. To understand why the world stops, you have to understand maritime insurance. Every single cargo ship and oil tanker on the ocean is insured. These ships are worth hundreds of millions of dollars. The oil inside them is worth even more. No company will ever allow a ship to sail without insurance. The moment those Iranian boats appeared in the shipping lanes, a group of people in London made a decision. These are the underwriters at Lloyd's of London. They are the people who decide how much it costs to protect a ship. Within 1 hour of the blockade starting, they issued a notice to every ship in the world. They declared the Strait of Hormuz a total loss zone. This is a technical term that sounds boring, but it is a death sentence for trade. It means that if a ship enters that water and is damaged or sunk, the insurance company will not pay a single cent. The risk has become too high to calculate. So, the insurance simply vanishes. When the insurance vanishes, the ships stop moving. It does not matter if the captain is brave. It does not matter if the ship is fast. The owners of the ship will order the captain to turn around immediately. They cannot afford to lose a $300 million asset in a single afternoon. This is the paper wall. It is more effective than any minefield. Suddenly, hundreds of tankers that were heading for the Persian Gulf stop in the middle of the Indian Ocean. They are waiting. They are watching the news. And while they wait, the price of everything you buy begins to change. In the world of oil, there is a term called the Hormuz premium. Usually, this premium is a few cents. It is the extra cost added to a barrel of oil because of the risk of passing through the strait. By noon, on the first day of the blockade, the premium is $50. The price of crude oil does not just go up, it doubles. Then it keeps climbing. Traders in New York are shouting. Computers are selling stocks as fast as they can. The world realizes that 20% of the global oil supply is now trapped in a cage. But it is not just about the oil that is trapped. It is about the ships that are already on their way. A tanker coming from the Middle East to Europe usually takes about 20 days. Now, those ships have to make a choice. They can sit and wait for the war to end, or they can turn around and sail all the way around the bottom of Africa. This is the route around the Cape of Good Hope. It adds 5,000 miles to the journey. It adds 2 weeks of time, and it requires thousands of tons of extra fuel. The global shipping schedule, which is timed down to the minute, falls apart. There are not enough ships in the world to handle a 2-week delay for every single delivery. By the third day, the immediate consequences move from the stock market to your front door. In countries like Japan and South Korea, which get nearly all of their energy from this one strait, the government declares a national emergency. They have strategic reserves, but those are meant for months, not years. They begin to ration electricity. Factories slow down. In the United States and Europe, the price at the gas pump jumps by $2 in 48 hours. People begin to panic buy. Lines at gas stations stretch for miles. This is exactly what the Iranian commanders wanted. They have not fired a single nuclear weapon. They have not even sunk a major warship yet. They have simply used their fast boats to break the psychology of the global economy. They are proving that they can make the world suffer without ever leaving their own backyard. But while the bankers are panicking, the military is moving. The United States Fifth Fleet is based just a few hundred miles away in Bahrain. They have been practicing for this exact moment for half a century. They have the most advanced sensors, the best pilots, and the most powerful guns. They are ready to clear the water. But as they move their carriers toward the entrance of the strait, they realize the trap is deeper than they thought. The fast boats are not just sitting there waiting to be shot. They are moving in patterns that make it impossible to tell who is an enemy and who is a civilian. The first week of the conflict is about to begin, and the world is about to find out why a billion-dollar aircraft carrier is a very dangerous place to be when the swarm arrives. The first week is when the world realizes that a billion-dollar warship is not invincible. It is the week the theory of modern naval war meets the reality of the Persian Gulf. To understand the crisis, you have to look at the American aircraft carrier. For 80 years, the carrier has been the king of the ocean. It is a floating city with 70 fighter jets and thousands of sailors. When a carrier arrives off the coast of a country, the message is clear. The message says that the United States owns the sea and the sky. But the aircraft carrier was designed for the middle of the Pacific Ocean. It was built to fight thousands of miles away from any land. In the open ocean, the carrier has space to move and hide. Its sensors can see an enemy coming from hundreds of miles away. But the Strait of Hormuz is not the open ocean. It is a narrow, shallow funnel. As the American fleet moves toward the entrance, the commanders realize they are entering a killing zone. In this narrow space, the carrier's greatest strength becomes its biggest weakness. Because it is so large, it cannot hide. The Iranian forces do not need expensive satellites to find it. They can see it from the mountains, with a pair of binoculars. They can track it with simple radars hidden in civilian fishing villages. The first week of the blockade is defined by a terrifying discovery. The Iranian fast boats are not just acting alone. They are the front line of a much larger system. Behind the boats are thousands of drones and truck-mounted missiles hidden in the coastal cliffs. This is what military experts call a closed-door strategy. If the American fleet stays outside the strait, they cannot clear the fast boats. The oil stays trapped. The global economy continues to bleed, but if the fleet enters the strait, they are walking into a trap. Imagine the tension on a billion-dollar destroyer on the fourth day of the crisis. The sky is filled with small, cheap drones. They are not firing missiles, they are just circling. They are waiting for the big ships to make a move. Every time a radar operator looks at his screen, he sees a cloud of targets. He cannot tell which one is a camera and which one is a bomb. If he shoots them all down, he uses up his expensive missiles in an hour. If he ignores them, one might fly into his bridge. This is the value gap. It costs the United States $2 million to fire one interceptor missile. It costs Iran $500 to build a drone. By the end of the first week, the math starts to look bad for the West. The American fleet finds itself paralyzed by the sheer number of targets. The Iranians are using the swarm to create a shield. They park their fast boats right next to civilian oil tankers. They move their missile trucks into crowded coastal cities. If the United States fires back, they risk killing hundreds of innocent people. This creates a psychological weight that slows down every decision. While the admirals are debating their next move, the fast boats are busy. They are not just blocking the water, they are boarding the tankers that are stuck in the traffic jam. By the fifth day, 10 massive oil ships have been seized by Iranian teams. The sailors are taken to the mainland, the ships are moved into Iranian waters. Now, the Iranian government has a new tool. They have hostages, they have millions of barrels of stolen oil, and they have proven that the most powerful navy in history cannot stop them. The world watches the news in shock. For decades, we believed that technology and size were the only things that mattered in war. In 1 week, a collection of fiberglass boats and cheap drones has proven us wrong. The killing zone has been established. No ship can enter, and no ship can leave. But as the second week begins, the Iranian commanders reveal the true purpose of their plan. They are not just trying to stop the oil, they are trying to choose who gets it. They are about to turn the strait into a filter, and they are about to decide which nations get to keep their lights on. By the second week, the blockade changes. It stops being a simple wall. It becomes a gate, and Iran is the only one with the key. The Iranian commanders realize they do not need to stop every ship to win. In fact, stopping every ship is a mistake. If you stop everyone, you unite the whole world against you. But if you choose who passes and who stays, you divide the world. This is the policy of selective passage. The Iranian government makes an announcement over the radio. They say the strait is not closed. They say it is simply under new management. They claim the water is dangerous because of the American presence. So, for the safety of the world, every ship must now stop for an Iranian inspection. Think about what this means for a captain of a Chinese oil tanker. He is carrying 2 million barrels of oil. His country is desperate for that energy. He sees the wall of fast boats ahead of him. An Iranian officer boards his ship. The officer is polite. He checks the paperwork. He sees that the oil is going to a friendly nation. He gives the captain a green flag. The fast boats move aside. The Chinese tanker sails through the strait untouched, but right behind him is a tanker heading for Japan. Japan is an ally of the United States. The Iranian officer looks at the paperwork and shakes his head. He says the ship is unsafe. He says it is carrying contraband. The fast boats do not move. The Japanese tanker is forced to turn around. In one afternoon, Iran has created a new world order. They are now deciding which countries get to keep their lights on. They are deciding which economies will grow and which will collapse. This creates a massive crack in the international alliance. For decades, the United States has promised to keep the seas free for everyone. Now, the world is looking at the American fleet and asking a hard question. If the United States cannot stop the inspections, why should we follow them? In Beijing, the leaders see that their oil is still flowing. They have no reason to help the Americans start a war. In Tokyo and Paris, the leaders are panicking. Their factories are starting to go dark. Their citizens are angry. They start to wonder if they should just make their own deal with Iran. This is the true power of the fast boat swarm. It is not just a military tool. It is a political wedge. The Iranian commanders use the boats to create a filter. They let through just enough oil to keep the global economy well from a total heart attack. But they keep the pressure high enough to make the West suffer. This puts the American president in an impossible position. If he attacks the Iranian boats while they are inspecting a Chinese ship, he might start a war with China too. The ocean is no longer a clear battlefield. It is a crowded, messy crime scene. And while the politicians are arguing, the reality on the ground is getting worse. In a small town in Europe, a factory that makes car parts sends its workers home. There is no electricity to run the machines. The price of heating a home has tripled in 10 days. People are starting to realize that their modern life depends on a strip of water they can barely find on a map. The siege has moved from the water to the kitchen table. But the most dangerous part of the plan is yet to come. Iran knows that the United States will eventually be forced to act. The Americans cannot let the filter exist forever. So, Iran begins to prepare for the final confrontation. They are not just waiting for the American attack. They are inviting it. They want the world to see the swarm in action. They want to show that the age of the aircraft carrier is over. And they are about to use the energy shock to finish the job. The shock does not stay in the Persian Gulf. It travels at the speed of light through fiber optic cables and bank accounts. Within 48 hours of the blockade, the world's energy river has stopped flowing. Most people do not realize how much we rely on that one strip of water. 20% of the world's oil is gone. That is not just a number on a screen. It is the lifeblood of every modern city on the planet. In the first 2 days, the price of crude oil jumps to $200 a barrel. Then it goes to $250. By the third day, traders in London and New York stop trying to guess the price. They simply stop selling. The panic moves from the skyscrapers to your neighborhood gas station. You wake up and see a line of cars stretching for 10 blocks. People are not just buying gas for their commute anymore. They are bringing plastic jugs and containers. They are terrified that tomorrow the pumps will be dry. In many cities, the government steps in. They order gas stations to only sell 10 gallons per person. They send police to stand guard at the pumps to prevent fights. But the gas station is only the beginning. The real crisis is hidden in the trucks. Almost everything you own was brought to you by a truck. Your food, your clothes, and your medicine move on diesel fuel. When the price of fuel triples, the cost of moving those goods triples. Trucking companies realize they are losing money every time they start an engine. Some of them simply park their fleets and wait. This is when the just-in-time economy breaks. We live in a world where stores do not keep extra food in the back. They rely on a truck arriving every single morning. When those trucks stop coming, the shelves go empty in 3 days. People who never cared about naval warfare are suddenly staring at empty aisles in the grocery store. The price of a loaf of bread doubles because the bakery cannot afford the electricity or the delivery. This is the ripple effect of the swarm. But for some countries, the situation is even more desperate. Japan and South Korea get nearly all of their oil and gas through the Strait of Hormuz. They do not have massive fields of their own. They live on a constant stream of tankers. By the end of the first week, their national reserves are dropping fast. The government in Tokyo orders the lights to be turned off in major cities. The famous neon signs of Ginza go dark. Factories that build cars and electronics are forced to shut down. Millions of workers are sent home with no pay. In Europe, the crisis hits the heating system. Natural gas is used to keep homes warm in the winter. With the Persian Gulf closed, the price of heating a home becomes more expensive than the rent. Families are forced to choose between buying food and staying warm. The psychological weight of the blockade begins to crush the public. And then there is the problem of food production. Most modern fertilizer is made using natural gas. When energy prices skyrocket, the cost of fertilizer follows. Farmers realize they cannot afford to plant their next crop. This means the blockade in the Middle East today becomes a famine in Africa and Asia 6 months from now. The world is realizing that our entire civilization is built on a foundation of cheap energy. Iran has taken that foundation away. They have shown that a few thousand fast boats can reach out and touch the lives of billions of people. But the biggest shock is not to the economy. It is to the money itself. For 50 years, the United States dollar has been the world's currency because of oil. It is called the petrodollar system. Countries have to hold dollars to buy oil. When the oil stops moving, the need for dollars begins to vanish. Central banks in China and Europe start to wonder if they should keep their wealth in a currency that cannot buy them the energy they need. The global financial system begins to shake at its very roots. The American government knows they cannot wait any longer. The pressure from the public is too high. The pressure from the banks is even higher. They have to break the swarm. They have to open the gate, no matter what the cost. But the Iranian commanders have been waiting for this exact moment. They are about to show the world what happens. The global shift is starting when the most powerful navy in history tries to fight a ghost. And the rules of the ocean are about to be rewritten in fire. The world did not just stop. It broke in half. For 80 years, there was a simple rule for the ocean. The rule was that the United States Navy kept the water open for everyone. It did not matter if you were a friend or a rival. If you had a cargo ship, you could sail it anywhere. This was the foundation of the modern world. But in the second month of the blockade, that rule died. The fast boats and the drones had done something that a nuclear war could not do. They proved that the protector could no longer protect. This was the global shift, and it started with a single meeting in a neutral country. While the American warships were still staring at the Iranian swarm, diplomats from other countries were already making a different choice. They realized that the old system was not coming back. The first to move were the nations that needed the oil the most. They stopped asking Washington for help. They started talking directly to Tehran. This was the moment the American era on the sea ended. Imagine a diplomat from a large European nation. He is sitting in a quiet room in the city of Muscat. His country is freezing. His people are protesting in the streets because they cannot afford gas. He knows that if he waits for the United States to win a long war, his government will fall. So he asks for a deal. He asks what it will take for his ships to get through the gate. The answer is simple but heavy. The Iranian officials tell him that his country must stop supporting the American sanctions. They tell him that he must pay for the oil in a different currency. And they tell him that he must publicly recognize their right to control the strait. One by one, the dominoes begin to fall. The alliance that has held the world together for decades begins to crumble. Nations that were once best friends with the United States start to look for the exit. They are not being mean, they are just trying to survive. They are choosing the heat in their homes over a treaty written in 1945. This creates a new set of rules for the sea. We call it transactional trade. In the old world, the sea was a public road. In the new world, the sea is a private hallway. To walk down the hallway, you have to pay the owner. And the owner is no longer a global superpower. The owner is whoever has the most fast boats and the most missiles on the coast. This change reaches far beyond the Persian Gulf. Other regional powers see what is happening. They see that a small, determined nation can hold the entire world hostage. In the South China Sea, in the Red Sea, And in the Mediterranean, the same pattern begins to emerge. Countries stop building giant, expensive aircraft carriers. They start building thousands of drones. They start building fast, cheap boats. They realize that you do not need to win a battle to win a war. You just need to make the price of fighting you too high for anyone to pay. This is the small power revolution. The world becomes a map of no-go zones. Global trade, which used to be smooth, becomes slow and jagged. Ships have to stop at every border to pay a tax or show their loyalty. The cost of everything stays high. The world economy never quite recovers its old speed. For the first time in a century, people realize that the ocean is not a safe place. The blue water era is over. The coastal era has begun. But while the politicians are arguing about treaties, the military situation is reaching a breaking point. The United States cannot sit still and watch their alliances die. They have one last plan to break the swarm. It is a plan that uses the very thing they have been trying to avoid. It is the moment of the great clearance. And it is the most dangerous moment in human history. 50 years have passed since the month the world stopped. The Strait of Hormuz is still there, but it is no longer the most important place on Earth. The great oil tankers are a ghost of the past. They are rusting in forgotten shipyards or were long ago turned into scrap metal to build something new. If you look at the world today, it feels quieter. It feels more local. And it is much harder to break. To understand this new world, you have to look at the machines we use to protect it. The age of the aircraft carrier is officially over. 50 years ago, we thought a billion-dollar ship was power. We built giant destroyers like the Arleigh Burke class and filled them with the smartest computers we had. We thought they were invincible. But the fast boats proved that $1 million missile is useless against a $1,000 target. Today, no one builds those giant steel fortresses anymore. They are too easy to find. They are too expensive to lose. In this new era, the ocean is filled with what we call cloud fleets. Instead of one big ship, a navy is automated. They are made of carbon fiber and recycled plastic. They have no people on board. They stay at sea for months, drinking energy from the sun and the waves. They do not have a single brain or captain. They work together like a school of fish. If you sink one, the rest of the fleet does not even blink. They just shift their pattern to cover the gap. This is the reality of distributed lethality. It means the power is spread out so thin that it cannot be destroyed by a single strike. The sea is no longer a place where one superpower can rule everything from a single deck. It is many small powers. But the change is not just in the military. It is in the very air we breathe. The blockade taught the world a hard, painful lesson. You cannot build a civilization on a foundation that someone else can take away. Before the swarm, every nation was a slave to the energy river flowing through the strait. When the fast boats closed the gate, that river stopped. The world did not just suffer. It realized it was vulnerable in a way it could not accept. So, the world stopped looking for oil in the desert. It started looking for energy. At home. If you walked into a home today, you would see the result. The house is its own power plant. The windows and the roof are made of materials that harvest every ray of light. In the basement, a battery the size of a trunk stores enough power to run the home for a week. Most people do not even know where the nearest power plant is. They do not have to. Energy is no longer something you buy from a country thousands of miles away. It is something you grow where you live. This did not happen because of a law or a treaty. It happened because of fear. People remembered the winter when the lights went out. They remembered the months when the grocery stores were empty because trucks had no fuel. They decided they never wanted to be that vulnerable again. The Middle East is a different place now too. The desert cities that once grew with the speed of a dream are still there. But the wealth that flowed into the Persian Gulf for a century has slowed to a trickle. The Hormuz Premium is a term you only find in history books. The region had to find a new way to matter. They became leaders in desalination and advanced computing. They became the place where the world's data is stored, because they have the space and the heat to manage it. The global economy has changed to match this new reality. We no longer ship every single toy and tool across the planet in giant containers. The global supply chain has been replaced by regional clusters. Europe makes what Europe needs. Asia makes what Asia needs. The ships are smaller. Their trips are shorter. Everything is a little more expensive than it was in the old days. Life is not as fast as it used to be, but it is much more stable. No single event in a 20-mile strip of water can bring the entire human race to its knees anymore. Imagine a grandfather sitting with his grandson. The boy asks why they do not have those giant ships from the old movies. The grandfather tells him about the month the world stopped. He tells him about the day the fast boats appeared on the horizon. He explains that we traded the big for the many. We traded the global for the local. The blockade in the Persian Gulf was a catastrophe. It ended an era. It broke empires. But in the long shadow of that crisis, a more resilient world was born. It learned to protect itself. The fast boats are still there, patrolling the coast of Iran, but they are no longer a threat. Because the world no longer needs to go through the gate. The gate is still closed, but the world found a different way home. 1,000 years from now, historians will look back at this moment as the Great Divide. They will see it as the day the giant died. For a long time, human power was about building the biggest thing. We built the biggest walls. We built the biggest castles. We built the biggest ships. We believed that if you had the most steel in one place, you were the master of the world. But the swarm changed the fundamental rules of being powerful. It proved that many small things are stronger than one big thing. This idea did not just stay on the water. It moved into every part of how we live. It changed how we organize our lives and our societies. Before the blockade, we lived in a world of centers. One city was the center of government. One bank was the center of money. One company was the center of energy. This made the world easy to manage, but it also made it very easy to break. If you hit the center, the whole system collapsed. The fast boats showed us that we were living in a house of cards. So, over the next 10 centuries, we stopped building centers. Governments changed. Instead of one big capital city making every single rule, power began to break apart into thousands of small pieces. Communities started to govern themselves more. They did not wait for a faraway leader to tell them what to do. They produced their own energy. They managed their own water. They grew their own food. The world became a network instead of a pyramid. This is the great shift from the vertical to the horizontal. The age of the empire ended because the cost of controlling people became too high. Think about why an empire exists. It exists because it can protect its people and punish its enemies. But if a small group of people can stop a global navy, then a small group of people can stop any tyrant. The tools of power became cheap. They became easy to make, and they became impossible to stop. The blockade was the first time we saw this new reality in action on a global scale. It was the moment the individual became more powerful than the institution. It changed the way we think about security forever. We stopped trying to protect ourselves with a single massive shield. We started protecting ourselves by being too many targets to hit. This is the legacy of the fast boats. They did not just win a battle in a narrow strip of water. They taught the human race that the future is small, fast, and connected. The shadow of that month in the Persian Gulf is very long. It covers every solar panel on every roof today. It covers every local garden and every independent town. It is the story of how we learn to be resilient. We realize that true strength is not about being too big to fail. True strength is about being too many to break. In the old world, we were afraid of the dark because we relied on one light bulb. In the new world, we are the light. We are a billion small lights that no one can turn off all at once. This is the peace that was born from the chaos of the swarm. It is a world where no single gate can ever be closed again. Because there are no more gates. There is only the open, connected sea of humanity, and that is a world that is much harder to stop. We have looked at a world that broke and then rebuilt itself. It is a story that reminds us how thin the ice really is. We like to think of our modern life as a solid mountain that will never move. But it is actually more like a river that can be blocked by a few fallen trees. The swarm taught us that the world is more connected than we ever imagined. And it taught us that being connected is a danger as much as it is a gift. When we look back at those fast boats in the strait, we see more than just a clever military tactic. We see a mirror of our own future. The story of the blockade is not just about oil or ships or missiles. It is about the end of the idea that bigger is always better. For centuries, we believed that the only way to be safe was to be the biggest person in the room. We thought that if we had the largest army and the most expensive technology, we were untouchable. But the fast boats proved that 1,000 small things can destroy one giant thing. This lesson changed everything from how we build our navies to how we power our homes. It forced us to stop looking for one single answer to every problem. Instead, we learned to find thousands of small answers. We learned that a world made of many small pieces is much harder to break than a world made of one big piece. This is the hard truth that was born in the fire and the waves of the Persian Gulf. The blockade was a tragedy for the people who lived through it. It was a time of cold homes, empty stores, and global fear. But it was also the moment the human race finally decided to grow up. We stopped relying on a single gate that someone else could close. We stopped building our lives on a foundation that could be taken away in a single morning. The world we live in today is more local and more quiet. It is a world where every community has its own strength. It is a world where no single country can hold the rest of the planet hostage. And even though the great empires of the past are gone, we are safer now than we ever were before. Because we are no longer a single glass tower waiting for a stone, we are a field of grass that can bend in the wind and never break. To remember this story is to remember the lessons that saved our civilization. Here is the first lesson. Quantity has a quality all of its own. A single expensive ship cannot be in 100 places at once, and it cannot fight 1,000 enemies at the same time. True power in the modern age is not about how much steel you have, but about how many pieces you can lose and still keep fighting. Here is the second lesson. Geography is the one thing technology cannot fix. In a narrow space, the rules of the ocean change, and the big ships become the targets. We must learn to respect the water and understand that every sea has its own rules. Here is the third lesson. Resilience is the only real security. If your life depends on a truck coming from 1,000 miles away, you are not truly free. Real safety comes from being able to provide for yourself right where you stand. Here is the fourth lesson. The world is only as stable as its weakest link. We spent 100 years building a global machine, but we forgot to check if the pipes were strong enough. We must build systems that can survive even if the center falls apart. The month the world stopped was a dark time in our history, but it was also the beginning of the world we have today. It is a world that is harder to control, but much harder to destroy. And that is a trade that was worth making. This is a hypothetical scenario based on the historical record. Real outcomes would depend on factors no model can predict.